Welcome to This Wasn't on the Test, the podcast where knowledge meets humor in the most unexpected ways. Join Dr. Jake and Dr. Kayla, a couple with doctorates in their respective fields, and their sister Kelsey, who may not have a PhD but sure knows how to keep things light with her quick humor and relatable take on the world. Whether you're a scholar or just a curious mind, this trio will make you laugh, think, and you might even learn something new. Tune in to find out why this wasn't on the test. Welcome back to This Wasn't on the Test, the podcast with me, Kelsey, and my brother, Dr. Jake Berg, and my sister-in-law, Dr. Kayla Berg.
Hello.
We're back for our third episode. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I mean, living the dream. Dry.
Kayla's doing better.
I'm doing better.
Yeah. And we're dry. That's good.
I got, hey, I can say words. I know how to do this. You know, flu season's over for everyone but me.
For everyone but you. For
Everyone.
everyone but the people on spring breaks.
Everyone but the people on spring break. And that's the kicker, is I'm sure I got the flu from like somewhere that I went, but I only went places like with other people, and no one else got sick.
Except for
So it's
our
Jake's
kid.
fault.
Except for me and our kid. And so she's been up my butt for 3 days because we've
But
been just hanging
And
out.
I stayed away from the sick ward and luckily didn't catch it.
Yeah, Jake's,
So could it be that Jake's genetics couldn't take on whatever the sickness was, and you and Emmy's genetics could, and so
I mean,
he carried
that's
it and gave it to
usually,
you?
I have a pretty good immune system overall compared to Kayla and Emmy at least.
That's, see,
I
okay.
have a great immune system, too.
Probably true. However, I feel like that's a little bit of a tainted comment considering you work literally in isolation.
Yeah, I'll agree. I mean,
And Emmy and I
yes.
are around every germ humanly possible on the planet.
Yeah.
So I feel like in terms of that, we don't get sick super often.
No.
Okay, to be fair, I'm around every germ humanly possible as well, and it's these strong German genes that are
Yeah.
keeping Jake and I
I think
alive.
it's both. I'm definitely less sick because of working from home, but
You know I'm 75% German, like ethnically, right?
Nobody cares. Just kidding.
Bitch.
yeah, but you can't
Well-
overcome your personal genetics of your.
I know. No, I know. I got a question.
What's the other 25% of you? So that's what
Norwegian.
fucked you over?
Yeah.
Norwegian.
Mm,
Mm.
that's where it went all wrong.
Yeah,
Is that from
We-
your mom or your dad?
my mom.
Well,
Ours is like Eastern European.
Yeah, lost me there. I got the Scandinavian.
But the other things going on is the flooding that's been happening in Kentucky because it rained for like a week straight with some periods of like 1 to 2 inches per hour.
yeah, that's insane.
Which-
I mean, you guys really escaped the death of that.
Yeah, us in particular, really lucky. Like, I mean, it all started off with like
Tornadoes.
2 days of tornado. Like there's a Sunday and then the Wednesday were both really violent wind wise.
Including, like, they have a confirmation of an EF3 tornado up near Louisville, which is not heard of in
Which-
Kentucky.
Was literally
Yeah.
like 100 feet away from one of my friend's apartment. It we literally went past it. So
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild. I mean, you
Like-
guys really lucked out there.
They even canceled Thunder over Louisville for the first time ever.
They
Canceled.
did?
Yeah.
Did they reschedule it for May 2nd by chance?
No. And I have bad news about
Damn.
that too. So we were out of school today because of all the flooding. We have so many displaced students and teachers and whatever. We didn't even do non-traditional instruction. So now our makeup day is May 2nd.
I'm
yeah,
pissed.
I
I'm
texted
pissed.
Kelsey about that.
Yeah, Jake told me.
That's what I said. I'm like, we don't use parent notes for Emmy very often, so we'll write a parent note. She can stay home, but I don't have days. So
Yeah, I'm keeping that Bia home.
I'm going to have to go to work.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll come up with a fun plan, and you
That's
can go
fine.
to work and then come meet up with us.
I'll say I'll
and-
be home by like 3. I'm done at 3, so it's not
Yeah,
like
But
I'm
yeah,
working late.
this
into
it's
is
the
that
like-
evening.
teacher life.
That teacher life, yo.
But the flooding in Louisville is like they're saying 8th worst all time now. In other parts of the state that got even more rain than Louisville did
Mhm.
are hitting their like second or even worst flood of all time. Frankfurt in particular.
Yeah, I saw
Oh, wow.
someone had posted on Facebook that like basically to the extent of like whenever there's some kind of crisis, teachers are the first ones to like, let's find a solution. Let's fix it. Let's do something. Like COVID was, we found out on a Friday that we weren't going to come back to school. All the teachers came back on Monday to put a plan together, and that was it for 2 months.
Yeah.
We had one day to come up with a 2-month plan.
You
we
should
could
do a whole episode
I could do a whole
sometime
thing on
about
that.
COVID teaching.
But Frankfurt Independent Schools had a staff meeting this morning where they put together like a Google Sheet, and their goal for today was to, did you see this?
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah.
Their goal for today, their whole Google Sheet was like, on the first column, it was like student's name. Were you able to contact them? How did you contact, like what way were they able to contact them? Do they need food? Are they displaced? Do they need shelter? Do they need clothing? And that was their goal, was to
check in on every
kid in the district and make sure that they had everything that they needed.
That's really
and
nice.
That's it. So we're still on like quote off of school tomorrow, but we have non-traditional instruction, so it's still a school day. I've still got to go in and work and do work things, but we won't have kids in the building because there's still so much flooding locally.
Well, good thing you had that calendar day built in.
All right. Didn't we just talk about calendars? Didn't this just happen?
That did just happen. We also just talked about gravity, and I found this. Well, of course, now it cleared out. I was like, I'm going to be prepared, and now it's not here. Okay.
While you're finding that, you go ahead and find it again. So I feel like 2 or 3 times over the past week.
I was about to just say.
Were you about to say the same thing?
Just the calendar stuff that we've talked about came up.
Like 2 or 3 times, and Jake's like, actually, I heard about this in a podcast.
Yeah.
We were talking today about 10-month versus 12-month employees, because one of my coworkers is a 12, like one of my coworker friends is a 12-month employee. So she was at work today. And she was telling me something about something that had happened in the office. And I'm like, well, because she's at work because she's a 12-month employee. And Jake's like, I know about that. I heard about it on a podcast.
Yeah.
And we were talking about
funny.
The government forgiving days that they don't go. And I was like, well, you said that they only needed to be in school for so many hours or whatever. Like,
heard about it in a podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, what'd you find on
Heard about
Instagram?
it in a podcast. Okay. So we have a new Instagram account. It's at This Wasn't on the Test. That's what it is. This wasn't on the test. We're the first people to have that. So great. We didn't have to buy it from somebody. Woohoo. But anyway, so I followed like a bunch of accounts and stuff. And so if anybody's on Instagram, they should follow us at This Wasn't on the Test. But I followed this Instagram account called European Space Agency, which I'm assuming is like the European Space Agency.
They're like the NASA of Europe is what you're meant to say. And yes, that they are.
Exactly. Yes. And they
A for effort.
They posted about A for effort. We should also tell that story. So they posted about a research thing that they're doing right now about gravity, essentially like what happens to the human body in space, and it's really interesting. And it was essentially like, would you spend 10 days in a waterbed for science? And they took 20 volunteers, and they had some of them lay in a waterbed where they like simulated like the effect of weightlessness. And then they had 10 people.
We're talking like a float tank type situation, like
essentially
in water?
Well, a float tank, but it was like protected by like a waterproof material. So like they were floating in it, but it was like their body was like in the sleeve essentially, so that their sleeve didn't get wet, or their sleeve, so their skin sleeve didn't get wet.
Their skin sleeve.
Their bone sleeve.
Our skin suit for our lizard bodies.
Yeah, that. But and then they had 10 people who spent 10 days head down in bed rest, which mimics fluid shift and muscle loss in space. And they like compared both methods to just like try to figure out and understand, like what happens to bodies in space. And I just thought it was really interesting. So if anybody wants to, is interested in like gravity and, how all of that works and how it impacts our bodies, follow European Space Agency on Instagram, because it was a really interesting article.
If anyone is an astronaut who's been in space who wants to talk to us about their experience with gravity,
even better. Better.
Let me know.
Kelsey,
who can we talk to?
Send me that link. I'll put it in the description for the episode when it gets published.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, actually, you can go into our Instagram page if you have access. Do you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, since you have access, you can go into our saved things, and I have it saved there.
Okay.
Actually, Jake, if you know how to use Instagram, you just get on the Instagram.
The only thing I bring to the table is knowing how to use social media.
That's true. That's why we invited you. That's really the secret. We're like, listen, we've got the content under control. We need a little something else.
Yes. We also need to talk about how on fleek my eyebrows are. Look at how good those things look.
Wow.
I know.
I haven't left the house. I am excited to announce that I did shower for this podcast.
Couldn't tell.
I was fucking bitch. I was looking pretty rough. But I had taken
I believe that.
Listen, we had this conversation over Christmas about how now I'm no longer like packed to go look cute in Wisconsin. I'm like, I guess my troll phase is continuing in a different state. Like,
yes.
I'm not trying to impress anyone anymore.
Especially when you're with me and I'm just like pushing alcohol on you the entire time. And I'm like, let's have fun.
You are a pusher. And I'll end up in my underwear in a lake in April.
Mm-hmm.
After,
that has happened.
4 Bloody Marys, 2 mimosas, and all of a sudden I'm half naked in a lake.
I do have a track record of talking people into skinny dipping.
Oh my God.
In any type of water. I mean, it was cold water. That water was like 42 degrees.
It was so cold. Or,
but it was so fun.
The time on the cruise where I leave you all alone for an hour and a half. And all of a sudden you're drunk golfing.
Yep. Also instigated by me.
I know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we get into it?
All right.
I guess.
Yeah. Jake's sick of our bullshit. That's Jake saying, let's get into it.
No, I'm just
Jake's always sick of our bullshit. Jake's been sick of our bullshit for 23 years.
Yeah. I think he's been sick of my bullshit for 33
yours
years.
A little bit longer.
Yeah. Since the moment I came out of the womb. I'm pretty sure he asked my mom to take me back to the hospital. Actually, I think that's a real story.
That tracks.
He told my mom to bring me back to the hospital.
That tracks. I wish you would have listened.
I know, right? I could have had a different family. Just kidding. We have a great family.
Bitch.
I love my family.
Okay.
Family. All right. So who are we starting with today? Kayla?
I went first last time, so I
is
think
it my
Kayla.
turn?
Yep.
Unless you guys want to rock, paper, scissors for it. Mostly scissors.
We'll be here forever because we mind meld and then...
We will do the same thing for the next 20
wait, do
minutes.
Do it.
No, it's going to be
I just
first
want to see what
time
you guys
we're
do.
not going to rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Nope.
Oh my God, it didn't happen.
That's what I just told you. Yep. That's Heisenberg uncertainty principle in action right there.
Hey, number 1, that's not your topic. Number 2, it's not your turn. Jesus Christ.
But should we do that topic?
I don't
Eventually.
even know what
Yes.
that meant. I'll put it on my list for
Jake's
later.
doing it.
I'll put it on my list. Hang on.
No, we should have Kayla do that one.
No, we should not. I lost my list. Where's my
How about I do that one?
Yeah.
Kelsey?
I'm not doing that.
All right. She's writing it down.
I don't even know how to spell it. So I'm not doing it.
I spell it right?
I can't see, so. Yes.
Ayo!
Boop, 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 boop.
Winning. Oh no. There's so many
All right.
things on
So
this
Kayla's
list.
going first. I honestly don't remember what we told you were talking about. So educate us all.
Okay. So you all assigned me social emotional learning.
Oh my God. That's right. Okay.
Do you remember this?
I remember now.
Okay.
Yep. I'm very excited about this.
Okay. I am too. So I did some actual... No, go ahead.
I'm very excited about it because, like, obviously I have a second grader. And, we've gone through quite the journey with that guy. But it's just been second grade is wild, y'all.
Second grade's a lot.
They're like fine. Like, I feel like second grade is like a threshold of like where they're starting to like learn about their emotions versus like reality and stuff like that. And so it's constantly like you can't be my friend type of thing, or like I don't want to play with you anymore, or this person doesn't think my clothes are cool, or like a whole realm of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you teach these kids to just like let it roll off their backs, right?
Well,
I mean, also like for all the different age groups too. I mean, you're talking about your kid who's a lot younger than like the ones that Kayla teaches.
7th grade is a
whole different
huge
class
transition year. Huge.
Yeah. I'm never letting my kid go to 7th grade.
Like 6th graders are sweet little babies. They come to middle school like all sweet and innocent, and they're so unsure of everything, and they're just kind of figuring it out. And 8th graders have like, started to mature. They're getting ready for high school. They seem like real human beings, and to get there, to pass through 7th grade, to get to that point, it's feral. It's feral. I don't understand what happens. There's so many hormones. So anyways.
Don't do that. People are not going to like that.
Okay. Sorry. So my first.
I liked it.
You liked it?
Mm-hmm.
Weird. So my first question, not question, whatever it is I would like for you all to explain to me in the briefest possible version explain social emotional learning.
I kind of said this when I was proposing the topic to you, but just like the additional set of skills to teach or for kids to learn to deal with like interpersonal skills and managing like we talk about this a lot with our kid, like the scale of emotion reaction to the different things that are happening to them, particularly with interpersonal interactions.
Kelsey, you're next.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good description, but I think also like it goes into like the unspoken burden that falls on a teacher in a lot of cases, because like, you know, like I try to be really intentional with my kids, but I know that I still like drop the ball a lot of times. And you know, then I sit in like a parent teacher conference and the teacher talks about like these like really interesting things. I'm like, wow, I could be doing that with my child. And she's like, yeah, I do it every day. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, like these teachers that it's just in their nature because they're, you know, meant to be teachers, and there's a certain type of human that's meant to be a teacher and a certain type of human that's not. And I am not one of those people, you know.
For the record, I'm not meant to be an elementary teacher. Like, I need the world to know that that's its own special.
Yeah.
Nope.
Ow.
Don't make that noise.
She does the noise.
She does it all the time.
That's how I feel about the idea of me teaching elementary school.
Well, so it's like, you know, but it's like an unspoken burden. You know, like they talk about that with like motherhood, like the unspoken like extra like mental load. And I feel like that's like the unspoken extra mental load of being a teacher is like
one of them
teaching the kids social. One of them. One of the many. Teaching kids like social and emotional skills. And, you know, like we've had a couple like instances with other kids at school where, you know, like for my oldest kid, that he hasn't had a problem, but the other kids have had a problem and it's affected him. And like, you know, you see like how the other parents handle the situation. And you're like, I feel like you need to do more there. And then the teacher ends up doing it. So that's kind of my take on the social emotional learning.
Good work. So, social emotional learning is actually originally a term used by neuroscientists to describe the way children obtain skills like responsible decision making, self and social awareness, and relationship management. Essentially,
so since
go ahead.
Scientists did this, should Jake be teaching us?
No. Not that kind of science. So, like, for social emotional learning is just a type of education that's based on an understanding of human development. That you have to teach these different skills and steps within human development in order for, like, to help students be successful. So the goal is to teach students to develop healthy identities, to manage their emotions, to achieve goals and think about their future self, to learn empathy and self-management in terms of time management or study skills or organization, like all of those things that aren't necessarily part of school, but to teach those to students anyways is all kind of in your umbrella of social emotional learning. And so then we get to the how do teachers do it and why do we do it? So it's going to vary by age. Like if you're looking at preschool, I thought the best example I could come up with, think about like episodes of Daniel Tiger where they're talking about, I remember the song about when you feel so mad.
Yeah, the song-based learning in that show.
About like how to manage your emotions and when you're feeling frustrated.
Oh yeah, your child loved Daniel Tiger.
She loved Daniel Tiger. But it even goes into like managing going to the bathroom and managing like bodily autonomy and like very much like those type of very simple problem solving like things in terms of...
I thought the songs were legitimately pretty good.
I loved Daniel Tiger.
I love Daniel Tiger. I need to get my youngest son Daniel Tiger because he's having some issues that Daniel Tiger might be able to help him with.
Yeah.
Not I bet that he's having issues.
Well,
I bet that
no.
he should
I meant like there'd be good songs for
Wow, Jake,
approach to the issues. Knowing that kid,
No, but
I
for
know.
Knowing that kid, he's a troll. Just kidding. Love him.
No, he's the sweetest baby ever.
So in middle school and high school, some of the things, I don't know about high school, but I'm saying like upper levels, some of the things we cover that fall under this umbrella is we do, and several of these are mandatory. We do like a suicide awareness training for the kids every year in terms of like, here's what to look out for in yourself and in your friends, and here's different resources and guidelines and help and where you can get that help and who you can talk to and things like that. We also do digital citizenship, so how to interact online, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. The fact that when you put information out there, it's going to stay there forever.
Yeah.
Your Snapchat's not secret. Anyways, but like, no. And so that's some of the things that we work out, like real life things. And then it goes into like life skills and study skills and how to stay organized for classes and, you know, how to make sure your assignments are getting done on time and how to like basic everyday things. And to some degree, like it's not always a big lesson. It's like, make sure your name is on this paper so that you can remember it, for make sure you were keeping this organized. Remember, this is going to be a long-term assignment. We're going to work on managing this assignment for more than one week. And so it's stuff that's embedded a lot of the times into things that we're already doing. Not like some special, like, hey, social emotional learning time. And they do things closer to that in like the elementary school ages, middle school and high school less so. A lot of the middle schools in our district have like a homeroom period, like 30 minutes at the beginning of the day, and they touch on some of those things and have different lessons about, you know, grit and perseverance and time management and all that kind of stuff. But what it boils down to, in a way that makes sense, is that it's a Maslow's hierarchy thing. Kelsey, do we know what this is? No?
I mean, I've heard the term. I could not define it at all.
So Maslow's hierarchy is the pyramid, and it's a pyramid of needs. So on the very bottom, it's you need food, you need water, you need air, like the basic things you need to live. And then as it goes up, you know, you need housing and you need, you know, that kind of security. And then as it goes, you know, the next level might be you need relationships and you need socialization. And
don't need any of those.
Yeah, okay. And the top of the pyramid is self-actualization. So like being the best version of yourself, like realizing your true potential. And so that's what it boils down to with, I think, kind of the importance of social emotional learning is that you're not going to reach these kids who, like, I'm not going to be able to teach them about figuring out the math to make a scale model if they're worried about their friends are mad at them.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to teach trigonometry if they're struggling with gender identity. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's some of those things. Like, you have to meet those lower level needs.
Because it consumes their mind.
Absolutely.
So much more than like what anything you're teaching can consume.
And you have so many kids that are on various levels of the stage. I mean, even down to the basic ones.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that's where it comes in and the importance of it. And I don't think that there's going to be a teacher on the planet that, I mean, of course there's going to be some. But for the most part, even though it is an extra burden, this is something that most teachers feel is important. Like, it has a place. The problem is that it is that extra burden. And I was thinking when we were talking about this, there's an image that was going around for a while, especially post-COVID, and it looks like a Norman Rockwell type cartoon drawing. And it's a picture of a teacher who has like a backpack on and a helmet and a hat and is carrying a bag and like all this stuff, and everything has a different label, like social emotional learning, hunger, you know, test scores, social work, nursing, like all the different, like, it never stops. There's always something. Yeah. Like we were talking about that school district, you know, forget education. We've got to make sure these kids have food and water right now. Their house is flooded out. Or like I have pads and tampons in my classroom. That's not my job, but I've got them in there. I've got Band-Aids because sometimes someone's going to hurt their finger and I'm going to have to take care of it. There's a mop in both of my classrooms because something's going to get spilled and it's just going to be easier for me to clean it up or for them to clean it up. Like, there's always things. There's 111 things that are outside of the quote teaching realm that are part of the job.
I think I think it's an interesting topic because there's some things that make sense. I mean, if you think about it, if you disregard like sleeping, like, kids are at school for half of their day, more or less. So I think it makes sense for some of those, like, kind of more, I wouldn't say basic, but there's a lot of things that make sense, like suicide prevention. Some of those things are related to school, like studying. Like, there's a set of these like things that aren't like directly related to like a topic or a subject that they're sitting in that would like kind of make sense that like we should
set aside time to address it.
Yeah, or like, be upfront with particularly like our employees to be like, this is an expectation that here's this thing that we're going to give you time, like you just said, like to set aside to talk about these things. But then what I'm more interested in personally is like that huge burden of the extra stuff that aren't like, there's kind of two sets of these social and emotional skills.
Yeah.
It's that second one
this doesn't seem to me as big of a burden in terms of like, to me, it feels important, but it does always feel like anytime there's a meeting or okay, now we've got something else we're doing. Like, okay, now there's something else we're in charge of. Like, there is always something else, and it does eat into the time that we're supposed to spend teaching the content that we're supposed to teach.
Yeah. I feel like, when you have a teacher, like, I think generally teachers are very passionate about, like, growing the future generation, right? And so...
And not just teaching the subject that they're teaching.
Right.
Right. They're truly growing that generation. Like, they're raising these kids, hopefully hand in hand with the parents. But I know a lot of times, especially in like low income demographics, like, you are the one that's, maybe for the first time ever telling these kids the difference between right or wrong, or that it's okay to feel certain ways, or it's okay to be angry, and it's about, whatever it is. Like, there's so many things. And I think that like teachers have so much passion towards the children and the kids that they're teaching that it very easily, I could see where like it could very easily like kind of cross over and end up sometimes being almost more important than the like actual curriculum that you're teaching.
I think it's interesting that you have teachers that are like, knowing what I know about the background of this student, if I don't do something about this particular thing, I know they're not going to get that from their parents or at home or whoever their guardian is. Like, one example is, I'm going to ask you, but I'm sure it happens a couple of times, is like women teacher having to really teach girls how to deal with getting their period and stuff like that.
Me personally, no, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. If you haven't, but I'm sure that there's multiple people that are like.
Well, and we, this is where in middle school, a lot of the social emotional learning is dealing with relationships. Relationships are the big thing. And so students are kind of discovering themselves and their identity and who they are. And so I give out a survey at the beginning of every year to all of my kids, regardless of if I've had them before or not. And all it asks are, what do you want me to call you in class? What pronouns do you want me to use in class? Do you want me to use these in front of other students in class? Like, can I say this out loud, or is this just, the name you're going to write on your paper? And can I use this information when I call home? And I'm thinking of one student in particular right now who I've had since 6th grade, is now an 8th grader, who, told me as a 6th grader, this is the name I prefer to go by. These are the pronouns I prefer to use, but you can't use them when you call home.
So it's just a DEI survey?
I'm going to need you to stop right now.
Oh.
You're kicked off the podcast. No, it's just like, what do you want me to call you? Because sometimes, and then they'll even put stuff in there like nicknames. Like our own kid would put the shortened version of her name. Like, here's the name I prefer to use.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other thing, but just like...
It is. But that's still like, when you have students in your class that you can give that validation to, you now have buy-in with them. They're going to listen to you. They're going to be more, respectful, more, likely to be a positive role model in the class if they know, like, hey, this person actually cares about me. This person wants to know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, it creates like a rapport that maybe will make or break like a student actually being interested in learning the content.
Right.
If they feel safe coming to your classroom, they're going to be more willing. I was just watching a movie on Netflix the other night. I don't remember what it was called, I should figure it out. We'll put it in the show notes. But it was like a Netflix movie, and the girl was going back to teaching because her mom had died, and she had like some stipulations to like get her inheritance essentially. And she started teaching again because her mom, she knew that she loved to teach, and she said like she had to start teaching. And one of her students had like major issues, and she was like trying everything to connect with the kid. And he eventually did and felt safe and like really thrived in her classroom.
And that's, I think, where this is going to be the perfect little segue into my entire second page of notes is on the politics of social emotional learning, which I'm not going to go in. I just wanted to make sure I had all of this written down in front of me. I'm not going to talk about the whole page. But, you know, that's where you get into that. Like, it's important to have and to build those relationships, but then you have people who are misconstruing what social emotional learning is, what it means, what the intentions are. There's one article that I read from NPR that critics of social emotional learning likened it to the, quote, Trojan horse of critical race theory and transgender advocacy.
Oh my God, please.
But that you know, we're using the social emotional learning umbrella to teach children about racism and teach them about gender and that's not what it is. It's more to
teach them to be genuine, good human beings.
It's more to teach them. Right.
Wow.
Right. But that, another article claimed that social emotional learning brings divisive subjects into classrooms and that it's a form of DEI. And that's the problem with it. God. Yeah, no, for real.
I'm not teaching my kids about this stuff at home. How'd they learn about it?
There was, you'll be shocked to know it was in the past like 2 months, but I found 2 different states proposing education bills to get rid of social emotional learning. One of them was Indiana, and it targets social emotional learning and the teaching of cultural competency. And so one of the people opposed to this...
I'm pissed.
I told you this was going to be heavy political. One of the people opposed to that bill, obviously, asked, like, if this isn't being taught in schools, then who's going to teach it? And the answer is the parents. But the problem is, like, and that does make sense. Like, this should be something taught at home. But the fact of the matter is it's not. And it's not. Right. And that's the other thing, too, is you can teach something in isolation, but all of these things in terms of, like, relationships and interpersonal skills and self-awareness, it's happening live in action in a school building.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it's like literally half of these young people's lives, is at school. Like, we can't just ignore that they're human when they're not at home, too.
Right.
Like, you don't just stop having emotions because you stepped into a school building.
So then Maine was the other state that I read about, which, hang tight, this was oh God, I'm sorry. I can't help with the sound. It's just that bad. That they were likening their low state test scores to too much time spent on social emotional learning. That the reason their test scores are so low is because teachers are spending too much time teaching students these quote soft skills and not enough time.
That's a good hypothesis.
Subjects.
Produce the evidence that is true.
There isn't.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
That's what drives me mad.
Yeah, that's
you
wild.
can make any assertion that you want to, but like, I'll believe you if you can produce the evidence that.
Because here's the thing,
it's
not that much time being spent on social emotional learning. Like, if we're looking at, even if you have, I know one of my schools has a homeroom. It's 30 minutes a day. They don't spend every day doing these types of lessons. They maybe spend 1 to 2 of their days a week. So we're talking 30 minutes to an hour out of a 40-hour school week.
Yeah.
Or like when we do digital citizenship, it's like 30 minutes a day for 5 days. When we do the suicide prevention, it's like 45 minutes to an hour. Like it's not leaching into super important core content time.
Those are the same people who probably don't want their kids being taught about sexual education in school and like being told that
it all comes back to the whole idea of indoctrination. Like we teachers are indoctrinating students, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like,
so then keep your kids home.
Well, here's the thing.
No,
I'm like,
don't
if you don't
do
want your
that.
kids, don't do that. If I could,
no,
don't do that.
But I know.
If
I'm
I
just saying,
if I could indoctrinate these kids, everyone would have a pencil every day. Everyone would have their name on their paper. There would be no late assignments.
Make your job easier.
I would
for
have
yourself.
a coffee on my desk every day. Like the kinds of things that people that conservative politicians, let's be honest, are worried about teachers indoctrinating their students with is not even on our radar. We don't care.
And also, I'm sure a lot of this stuff isn't even
Yeah.
in like a black box. I mean, do you communicate like, by the way, our focus is this month on,
Oh, yeah. That stuff is communicated by the schools,
yeah.
by the district, by the schools,
By the way, your kid's learning this thing about,
I send out a weekly newsletter about everything that's going on in my classroom. Like, I'm not over here secretly, like, with my stew pot and my magic wand mixing up some secret brew.
That's the frustrating thing.
I wish
I was.
Is all these outrageous things that they try to claim. It's like, but they told you what they're going to.
It's not a secret. Yeah. We're not doing anything crazy.
Well, and like for a lot of these things, like you have to sign, like in my kids' school, like obviously they're not getting into like suicide and stuff like that with elementary age. I mean, maybe they do in like 4th and 5th grade. I don't know. But, like where we're at right now, they don't. But whenever there's like something that's like could be potentially controversial, like they send home a waiver saying like, if you don't want your child involved in this, that's totally fine. Sign this waiver. We'll pull them out. We'll, they'll give them something else to do. But it's also like, Zeke came home and he was like, I have a sheet for you to sign. And I was like, oh, what's it about? And he was like, well, we're going to talk about penises again.
Oh, penises.
He's over it.
He's over it. He's heard enough. He has heard enough. And so, it's like they send home waivers. So if you're so offended by it, then sign the fucking waiver and pull your kid out of that class.
That's
that day.
It's comical to me. A lot of the stuff in terms of the whole dismantling of the Board of Education is about like giving power back to parents to choose their child's education and giving them control over what their children is learning. Their child is learning. That's already happening. Like, this isn't a secret. We're not. Yeah. This isn't the Batcave. This is not the CIA.
I've got an interesting question, Kayla, about when. I'm sure there are parents that don't consent to their kid doing a certain learning thing or whatever, It's like, I'm sure they have to go to a specific room or
they
whatever.
Just go sit in the library.
But is there anything like, how do those kids then interact, or how do their peers view those kids when their parents won't let them take part in like some of this learning?
I mean, here's the thing. If you play it off right like as a teacher, the other kids won't know that that's what's going on.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
There's a lot of situations where something is different is happening with a single student.
So you're covering for the kid and essentially their parent.
Pretty much. I mean, there's lots of stuff.
Cool. So another thing that you're not getting paid for.
Well, I mean, not even like social emotional learning things. Like, I don't remember what it was the other day. There was something where like all of my kids were doing one thing, but like 2 of my kids couldn't or weren't, or I don't remember what it was, but it was just like hey, so here, I just need you all to go down. They need you in the library real quick for a second. And like, as they're on the way out the door, I'm like, here's why you're going to the library. Okay, thanks, bye. And like, everyone else was just like, they had to go to the library. Cool. Like, if you play it off right, like no one else knows. They're just like, oh yeah, they got called down to the library. Then I don't know what it was for. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the upside, we're going to end on a positive note. One of the articles that I was reading had quoted three different studies that were done about social emotional learning. And shockingly, all 3 of those supported the effectiveness of social emotional learning, in that students with higher social emotional control at younger ages were more likely to graduate high school. That having access to social emotional learning led to better jobs and higher earnings, so it helps economically, and that it also lowers crime rate. That for every $1 spent on a social emotional learning, it's actually putting $11 back into the economy in terms of better jobs, less crime, more successful citizens.
100%.
So shockingly,
because you could be
helps.
the smartest. Yeah, I mean, you could be the smartest person in the world. The smartest, you could be so intelligent, but if you haven't been taught or learned the social and emotional skills, at least to get by in society, you're never going to make anything of yourself. Like, you're going to be an asshole, or you're just like not going to go as far as you possibly could. And I feel like, I feel like I'm a pretty good example of like having really, really, really good social emotional like skills and how far that's gotten me in life.
Has it,
I mean,
though?
obviously I've had quite the journey.
And like, this isn't new. It's
I mean,
just been.
I've gone through shit. I have gone through shit, but like I have been very successful now, you know, like in this part of my life because I have good social emotional learning
And like, here's the
skills.
thing: this isn't new. Like, it's been called like 4 or 5 different names over the decades.
Yeah.
This has been, I'll say the one that I remembered was character education. Like, I remember that somehow being referenced when I was in school. 21st century skills. Soft skills as an adult, like when you're talking about like jobs and like, here's the soft skills that we're looking for. Like, it's not new. It's not magic.
We still call it soft skills, like in higher education. Yep. Like I have a couple people on one of my teams. Yeah, I have a couple people on my team that like desperately need to learn soft skills. And so I was talking to my supervisor about it. I was like, you know, this person would be great, but they need soft skills. Like they cannot be successful in what they're trying to do unless they like get some sort of training or like formal class or something. And so now we're looking into that type of education for them to help them grow because they need it.
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
That's I warned you all last week that this was going to end up being political because I've seen the political writings on the wall. For like, one of the articles was from 2022, but a lot of the stuff that I was reading was in the last 2 months.
Yeah. What happened 2 months ago?
We're talking about education and
what
science
happened 2
here.
months ago? Let's see, carry the 1, add the 5. Oh, right. I get it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, we are talking about education and science here. Like, it will be political every single time.
Yeah.
And everybody that listens to our podcast can very easily guess where we fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
That's it. So, that's what I got.
Oh, well. That was great. I really loved that. I feel like that was a really good conversation. And I think that it opens it up for a lot of different questions. So if anybody like wants to dive deeper into social emotional learning that's listening, send us a little message.
We're here for it.
You know, wherever you send messages.
Well, like, these get posted
Instagram.
on YouTube, so YouTube comments.
Instagram.
Yep. Instagram at This Wasn't on the Test, or our email, which is This Wasn't on the Test podcast@gmail.com. Right, Jake?
This wasn't on the test podcast at gmail.com.
Or any experience you have with social emotional learning, we'll take it.
Yeah, any stories that you have about this? Yeah, any experiences?
I think it's a conversation that shouldn't stop, especially in like our current political climate. Like I think that it's something that needs to be continued to talk about.
Agreed.
Cool, I loved that. All right, well, that was great, Kayla. Thanks. Thank you. So now we're gonna go to Jake. Jake is talking about something that I have no idea about. Higgs Boson. Is that how you say it?
Higgs Boson.
Higgs Boson. Can you spell that for us?
Higgs is Higgs. Boson is Boson.
Okay, so it's 2 words. Higgs Boson.
Yeah. Kelsey,
is that the name?
That's the name of a particle.
What?
You've heard that term though, right?
Well, yeah, just from our podcast. I mean, I've never heard it outside of you saying it in our first episode of our podcast.
Well, you heard like the God particle type things before in the news and everything, right?
Large Hadron Collider, anything?
No.
We should have called.
I'm really surprised.
We should have called this
like
Doc
the
Doc
God
Goose.
particle.
This podcast.
Doc Goose was better after all.
That was a better name after all. Fucking goose.
I mean,
this wasn't on the test. Did they test us about this?
I don't know. Like, here's the thing. I have no physics background. I just know this from, listening to the news. It was a big
especially
thing.
With putting the God thing.
It was like when we were in college. Was that when it? Like,
yeah.
It was big. Like I remember,
right at the end of a college.
Yeah, I remember like hearing about it on like 60 Minutes.
Okay.
And like
when you guys were in the end of college, I was like,
yeah, but you have the internet, right?
Church.
I was also getting married at the end of college.
Not in a Christian church,
nope,
though.
Sure not. We're heathens.
Nope. So, yeah, no, I had not heard it. I mean, I'm sure I've heard it at some point, but like never would have known what it was.
I don't think that there's really, even in the news, which I was pretty tapped in because, I mean, that was when I was getting my bachelor's degree and moving into grad school and everything, where I knew a lot about
very
it.
Very physicsy.
Or was really tapped into like physics news and everything like that. Like even that, I don't think ever really explained what it was. Just that there was a facility in Switzerland that was doing these new experiments, that were going to hopefully detect this particle, without really much context about like why that's important or anything like that.
Sure. So could you give us like a definition, like just like a whatever,
Is that,
like the
is that what
Webster's
are we starting with a
definition?
like overview?
Yeah, I want to build up to it.
You want to build up to the overview?
Yep. Well, no. I
Okay.
want to build up to everything here. So yeah, I want to build up to it. So Kelsey, you probably can't really contribute to my first question at all, but maybe you can take your wildest guess. But I wanted to ask, like, what does the Higgs boson do?
Oh, I know the answer. I'll let
Ooh.
Kelsey. I think I know the answer. I'm fairly confident I know
Well,
the answer.
You think you know the answer?
I think I know I feel like I have an answer that's going to at least be
I'll agree on that. Yeah.
in the realm of the answer.
Yeah, you go
Okay,
first,
Kelsey, you go
Kelsey.
first.
Okay. So did Higgs boson get named because of a person?
Yes.
Like, is it named after a person named
Higgs. Yes.
His name
Yeah.
is Higgs. His first
No,
name is Higgs.
Last name is Higgs. Both actually. Higgs.
Sam Higgs.
No, Peter Higgs.
Oh, okay. Peter Higgs. Okay. Well, I don't know what Peter Higgs did. But it had to do with particles.
Yep. So no guesses on what the Higgs boson does?
I would have no idea. If somebody ever asked me that, I would say it was like maybe like something to do with balloons.
Okay.
I don't know, but that's like what it
I mean, it's the most random. Yeah, if
Jesus.
you don't have any idea. Kayla. what do you
Okay,
think
so
the Higgs
isn't it
boson
the
does?
particle that like gives mass to everything?
So this.
Can you just say yes or no?
No.
Can you just say like mostly kind of yes? Kelsey, eat shit.
Can
you say kind of
the simple
kind of yes?
actual answer is no. It doesn't do that.
But like Kelsey, this wasn't on the test.
So I mean, you're pointing at the right concept. I'll
Kelsey
say.
said a balloon.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you're 500 times closer than Kelsey, obviously.
Usually.
But
I didn't say what kind of balloon.
yeah, what kind of balloon?
Mylar.
Like a balloon
Okay,
animal.
498 times closer than Kelsey. So you're right. It does have to do with like the property of mass that things have. So like that part is right. But I've talked about this a lot about how we make theories related to our observations. And I mean, it's all kind of, we're talking about particle physics, so that's going to just come up over and over again. But the problem that physicists, theorists in particular, people who were trying to develop the math that described the universe, the problem that they had was that the models that they built for early after the Big Bang was that you had lots of particles with high energy, and they were able to describe it well. But the problem was that the models that they built that described the behaviors of things showed that the particles didn't have mass. Okay.
Nope, not okay. You've lost me somewhere.
So
I was there and then I wasn't.
So we're going to talk about a thing called a gauge theory. And a gauge theory just means that the laws of physics behave the same everywhere.
Okay.
So like, you know, you have to obey this set of rules no matter where you are in the universe, really. Yes?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay, moving on. So they were able to make these models where like the interactions and everything like that and would line up with the theories would make sense.
So everything works the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, except that when they would calculate the mass, like they would basically all the particles would be moving at the speed of light early in the Big Bang. So when like everything really has a lot of energy because the Big Bang happens. Have you ever heard like you can't create or destroy energy?
Mm-hmm.
So all of the energy in the universe now is equal to all of the energy that was at the beginning of the Big Bang.
Okay, you're with me. I'm with you so far.
So all the particles that were created at the Big Bang would have very, very high energy and, you know, close to the speed of light in terms of like their speed as they're shooting out from the Big Bang. And so all those in their theory were massless and moving at the speed of light. So they need to figure out somehow how the particles get mass. So really what the Higgs boson, well, I'll get more into like the actual boson part of it, but that's what they need to do. So Peter Higgs was one of the scientists that worked on this problem. You're going to hate this like just more and more because this gets so much more into just pure math than it does anything else.
Why?
You're coming up with the topics.
Isn't science fake? Just kidding.
This is real anyways. It's all made up.
So there's a couple sets of different groups of scientists that were working on this. And so they had the theory, quantum field theory, they call it, that described the universe, but they needed to, like I said, come up with something that could get mass for things. And so I should also introduce this concept of symmetry. And so physicists like symmetry because
Can
it
you
also
ask me what this means? I
has
know
to
the
do with,
answer.
like, what symmetry?
I know what symmetry is.
Go ahead.
My face is perfectly
Actually,
symmetrical.
most people's faces are not because they would look really weird.
Oh, I'm beautiful. I have the looks of the family, so.
Yeah,
Anyways.
what do you think symmetry means?
It's like perfectly equal on both sides, like right down the middle. Everything's equal.
That's what probably most people think of symmetry, but again, this is like a mathematical term.
How the fuck did I get this wrong?
Symmetry in this is like if you take a process forward and backwards, it would
We're talking
look
about
the
like
same.
Symmetry in terms of like balancing chemical equations type thing.
A little bit.
Aha! And I'm back.
This would be like if you have a process, basically you get the same results, but it's more like the commutative property in math where you can add the same thing backwards and forwards.
Oh, okay, and it works out the same.
Yeah,
I
so
got
you
you.
get the same result. So you do like -4 plus 10 is negative, or is positive 6. But if you do 10 plus -4,
Still positive.
the opposite order, you still get positive 6.
I'm good.
That's
I got this.
kind of what
I'm on
they
board.
mean from like these theories
Those are things I didn't
are
know.
symmetrical. But I don't exactly know how they got to the idea. It had something to do with a different concept altogether. So there's having to do with superconductivity, the theory around that, and Peter Higgs, amongst others, kind of had this idea like, let's apply the math that works for superconductivity to our field theories that we're trying to develop for to describe relativistic quantum mechanics. So that means like high energy particles at the start of the Big Bang. And they called that spontaneous symmetry breaking. And so it's a mathematical mechanism that momentarily breaks the symmetry to allow the universe to go from one state to another state, but it all essentially stays symmetrical, but momentarily. So you can think about like
temporarily
this.
abandons the laws of physics.
No.
Okay,
That's
never mind.
key actually is that it doesn't do that.
Cool.
But what you can think about it is like at the moment of the Big Bang, like think of like a pencil that's standing up on its tip, perfectly balanced. But if you push it in any direction at the slightest amount, it's going to fall over. But after you do that, it then will be at rest after it falls over.
Okay.
So it's that Big Bang is symmetrical at the beginning, where it's standing up straight, and then it moves through a state, breaking its symmetry spontaneously. That's what they call it. And then lies into a stable state at rest. Well, not at rest, but like, for my example, the like pencil would just sit still in a stable state afterward. There's also like an example of like a sombrero, where if you like put a ball on the top of a sombrero and it'll roll down into like the trough around the brim, but then stay in the brim there.
Okay.
So that was kind of
I like the sombrero one better.
the theory.
I highly relate to the sombrero one.
They all had a fiesta after they figured this out. So he applied that mathematical concept to their theories of the quantum field theories to do this. So once they did that, then they found that the particles that were coming out of that did have mass. But as an additional consequence, there was extra particle that was like unique, I guess.
Unique in what way?
So the particles that came out of this that
Uh-huh.
had mass are the W plus minus and the Z bosons.
Okay.
And those are the force carrying particles for the weak force. And so that's the force that like
The weak force, which is not the weakest force.
which is not the weakest force.
I remember. I learned this on a podcast.
What that one does is they call those flavor changing a lot, and those are what like lets particles move.
Hang on, back up. That was in
Ooh.
your thesis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Can we talk about flavor changing for a second?
It's not that kind of flavor.
Yeah. Okay, go on.
But in any case, like the weak force is really essential to like how particles change from one particle to another. So that's what they were really like. They had this theory where the W and Z bosons came out with mass, but it was like it's a group theory type thing. So there had to be 4 particles as in the group,
Mm-hmm.
and like W and Z bosons, W minus, W plus, and Z, and then there had to be a 4th particle, and so that one came out that's the Higgs boson particle. So it doesn't have to do with the weak force, but comes out as a consequence of applying the theory that they've like developed to solve the problem of why their particles were massless to begin with, but then obviously have to add mass because we know things have mass. So my second question, after all
I have
that,
like 3 questions.
yeah, let's do those after I talk about this second question of mine is, how many people are attributed with developing the theory for the Higgs boson?
2, Higgs and boson.
Bose was before.
I mean, probably the way I've seen these like type of group projects and research things work, probably like 40-11.
That's probably the actual answer, but like
40-11?
40-11. Yep.
He's like, you know what? You're right this time.
No,
No, but for real,
but-
like a shit ton.
I'm saying you're probably right that it's a lot more, grad students of these people, but as far
Right,
as
that's what I'm
like who they kind of say, like the
Okay,
main
fine. Then like
physicists,
8.
it's 6.
Oh.
But this is
Well, closer than I.
so I'm just gonna read the names. And Peter Higgs actually he's kind of
He
like,
stole all
why
the
no
credit.
he's the people attributed it to him, and he's kind of like, well, you need to acknowledge the other people. So like he's
What a
tries
good
to
dude.
call it he's calls it ABE, I don't know if they pronounce this, ABEGHHKTH mechanism. He wants them he wants it to be called.
Yeah, I understand why they went with Higgs
Sounds like
boson.
sounds like a name that Elon Musk would name his next child.
Yeah, it really does.
That's probably already in the womb, so
yeah. Can't.
coming in hot.
The names of those physicists are Anderson, Brout, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Englert, Grelnick, probably Engler, Grelnick, Hagen, Higgs, Kibble, and de Hoff are the main ones that developed it. I will say, after they discovered the Higgs boson in like 2012 and announced it in 2013, then the Nobel Prize was awarded in 2013 for the mathematical part, because it was kind of like theory until they found it. So they got the Nobel Prize that year after it was confirmed to be found.
Wow, that's cool.
Only Higgs and Engler were given the Nobel Prize for that work.
Wow, they got shafted.
So my second part of that question is, why were they the only 2?
Were those the only 2 that did the math part of it? If it was like math exclusive?
No, those are all theorists. They all did math. None of those guys are like experimental. All of them were developing math. And actually, as it's written, they kind of worked independently and all kind of had the same
Were they there the
idea.
day that it was discovered?
No.
They just happened to be at work that day?
No. No.
Were they the only ones that could get plane tickets to Oslo for the Nobel Prize ceremony?
No. These are all good guesses,
Thank
but no.
you.
Were they the only ones that did the work and everybody else just like kind of tacked on
Nope.
to the side project?
Nope. If it I guess they all I'm sure had their own contribution to the concepts.
Was their
and
paper
everything.
published in a way that it was like Higgs and this dude et al, and so they
It's
didn't ignore
so
the et al?
much more like I wouldn't say not petty. What's the word I'm looking for? Like
I know it. Higgs slept with the other guy's wife.
wow, it's not that. It's like anything that you're coming up with, it's more on a technicality than anything like that. And first of all, the answer is that I think it was Guralnick was actually in the main group with Engler and Higgs. Well, I think it was like Higgs and then Engler and Guralnick and then the other three. And then De Hooft actually is a different scientist who didn't really directly contribute to that. But Guralnick died before they found the Higgs boson. And I don't know if you all know this, but the Nobel Prize do not give posthumous Nobel Prizes out. So you have to be alive in order to get a Nobel Prize. There's a lot of scientists who have made like very important contributions to science who don't have Nobel Prizes because it was either confirmed way after they had passed away or anything like that. So Guralnick didn't get Nobel Prize because he died. And then they have a second rule. They will not give a Nobel Prize to more than 3 people. And solely by that virtue, the other 3 didn't get Nobel Prize for that.
This sounds like bullshit. Like, I get okay, he's dead, he can't get it. Like, we get that he contributed, but he died, so he doesn't, whatever.
He can't walk up the stage and accept the award.
But, like, I don't know if I like the 3 people rule.
There's a lot of controversy about it. There's, I'm sure there's a lot of groups of scientists that there's 4 people. And they're
right.
Like, which 3 of the 4 of us are going to get the Nobel Prize? All that type of stuff. So the explanation is more like political and on a technicality and to how they do things more than like the merit of their contribution to this thing.
So I have 2 questions that you made me pause for, and it's taken all of my energy to still remember them. Like literally everything I've got inside of me.
All right.
Question number 1. Were they looking for this particle when they were conducting this research?
Yes.
Okay. Question number 2. Was there research, because a lot of your explanation at the beginning had to do with the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
Was there research fundamentally related to the Big Bang, or were they doing something separate entirely looking for this particular particle?
The LHC, I didn't look this up for this, but to my knowledge, specifically was built for detecting the Higgs boson.
Really? This whole thing looking for this whole facility?
Mm.
So now that they found it, what's the next steps for them?
There's so much more that they can achieve, not specifically with this process.
So their entire research goal for this facility was to find this one particle.
That's typically how you convince people to give you money.
Okay.
Convince them that
Wow.
the thing that you're trying to find is important and say we're going to try to meet that goal.
So what are the implications for this in terms of are there any practical implications, or is it just knowledge based? I'm not saying that the knowledge isn't important. I just mean you know what I mean.
Yeah. I've said this a lot. I think you've probably heard me say this a lot over the years. It's kind of you don't really know what you're going to end up finding in terms of application or how you can harness it. You have to make these discoveries in the first hand in order to have the potential to try to harness them. So I don't know. We could make our own mini universes. I don't know.
So besides the fact that they were looking for this and then they found it, what is the importance of this particle?
Yeah. So, we've also said about is it important to just know how the universe works? Very disconcerting that their theories made sense, except that the only caveat being that their particles were massless. So it's all this evolution of math and stuff like that.
I have a question.
Yeah, let me kind of finish this thought. Just that
Okay.
We talked about it with string theory is why do the particles have the specific masses that they have? What did I say?
You said masses.
Oh,
you said mass.
Masses and other properties.
Yeah.
First of all, you need to have mass in order to have a different mass from other particles. And so they didn't have a theory at all about how the universe went from the Big Bang with lots of energetic particles with zero mass to this thing that billions of years later have these things that are way more like size-wise macroscopically bigger than a single particle and like conglomerated into like tangible things. But just like how did those things need to have their properties and have their mass before that can
I think
happen?
that's kind of what I was looking for in terms of an answer is like, so this basically explains how the Big Bang Theory went from energetic particles with no mass to mass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's what
like
I was looking for.
all this is happening in the 1960s. So
Which part?
that's the theory part of it.
Okay.
To go from like, here's this gauge theory.
That's not when the bang happened.
No, I know that's not when the Big Bang happened, you dumb
But
bitch.
like here's this gauge theory that describes quantum mechanics around the Big Bang, but we need to add this other component to it to make sure that all of our particles get masses. So, you kind of have to Frankenstein any model that you come up with to describe the universe, because you just have to keep adding to it to describe everything.
Actually, Frankenstein is the name of the doctor, not the monster.
Oh, yeah. You're one of those people.
Yeah. I teach that book, so yeah.
Kelsey, what was your question?
I was just going to say, so like you could say like a yes or no answer. Scientists generally believe that the Earth then was created via Big Bang, right? Like that's accurate.
You're going to have to be a little bit more specific of what I mean by created by a Big Bang.
Like the universe is here because of the Big Bang or whatever.
It's generally accepted. I mean,
I get
in
that
terms
it's more
of
complicated than that, but
yeah, I think what I would say personally, just based on my inference of learning all the stuff, is the main point is that at some point in time there is a very highly condensed region of like space and energy that got released. So that makes sense a lot with like that spontaneous symmetry breaking that I described. Like they're saying that I don't know if like there was nothing before that point, or it went in reverse before that point.
What do you mean by went in reverse?
Like, so say like in the sombrero example, somehow it went from in the trough of the sombrero up to the top and was sitting there again. This is a whole nother topic, but like on the Big Bang, like they call it like expansion and contraction. Does the universe breathe? I think people call it. Like, does it expand to some point, stop, and then contract back to like a single dense space for some reason? So that like as far as people agreeing that the Big Bang is what created the universe, I would say not everybody has a consensus on that. But I think that most people think that there was an event that behaved like how we think the Big Bang behaved and resulted in like,
the universe as we know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It sounds.
Yep.
It sounds a little pedantic, but I mean, these are all questions we just don't know.
Why are your topics always so like existential?
I mean, I think that makes it interesting personally.
It's like late for existential questions is my problem.
We'll record when I'm visiting in May. We'll record an in-person podcast at a normal time of night, and we can get really existential then.
We'll just send your mom out with the children for like ice cream.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, exactly.
All the kids go to bed.
One kind of last point about if you don't have something that has mass, then all these other particles look kind of the same. And so you also need to have something that like allows for the different masses of all the different particles. So like, there's some particles that have almost identical properties except the masses are different.
So is that a Higgs boson thing too?
What do you mean?
Like it's not just about where the mass is coming from, it's about the variety of mass.
Still not understanding your question.
Sounds sexual.
Never mind.
I mean, I just mean like between, trying to remember off the top of my head, like the different quarks, kind of, and the like electron, muon, and tau particle. Those are kind of like very similar. They just like they call them generations, and they kind of get heavier but have the same properties as the others. Last thing to talk about really quick is just like the actual detection of it. So I mentioned that they detected it at the LHC, Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. They took data over there. I don't know. I think it was the second run because they had to like run the machine first to just make sure it was working.
Okay, I need you to give a brief overview. Like I understand ish how a particle accelerator works.
Mm-hmm.
But like this might be a dumb question and I'm here for it. Do they pick which particles they're like throwing in there to like smash into each other?
Yep.
Okay. So then how did they decide which ones to smash into each other to like try to find this other small particle?
The theory.
So which particles was it
at the
that they threw in
LHC
there?
they collide protons with antiprotons.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So
And that one's a circular particle accelerator, yes?
yeah, the LHC is a big ring. But I mean, there's a lot of different steps leading up to the particles getting into the rings. So it's not just a ring. There's other facilities that are spinning them into rings and sending them to different places. And I think ultimately it starts in a linear. It's complicated. There's a lot to it. So they do a first run, make sure that the thing is working. I think they had to add some upgrades to the thing after they did some testing. And then in the second run, they took data for 2 years. And then did analysis and pretty much right away found the Higgs boson.
Wow.
My third
so they did they like not know they found it until they were like analyzing the data after the 2 years, or did they know like when it happened?
Yeah, there's no way to know when these things are happening, what you made, because you're not really getting an immediate readout of the data. You're just
okay. That was my
collecting it. And also, let me get into something else. But I want to know. I want you to ask. My third question is: how many signal events did they find in their data analysis that they were able to say these events are a Higgs boson?
7.
Kelsey, your guess?
It's 15.
You diluted Kelsey's guess. What if I told you that there's 600 million events per second and it runs for 2 years? Does that change your answer?
Well, shit, yeah.
We were off. We were wrong,
Just
Kayla.
a little bit. 3 trillion.
Okay. Kelsey, you want to change your answer?
95 trillion.
That's a lot. What if I told you that the answer is actually in between the two guesses you first gave me?
Why did you give us this weird? Oh my god.
It's 10.
So is it 20?
10 events. Sorry, Kelsey, you need to do the math on that again. Kayla said 7 and you said 15.
You said 15. He said in between those. You said, is it 20?
I thought you were meaning for my 95 million
So,
or trillion down to Kayla's 7.
After they did their
and right in the middle of there is 20.
You know what? Shut up.
Okay.
After they did their analysis and like plotted out things, they were left with 10 events, but they strongly stood out that they were Higgs bosons that were created in those 10 events.
So why so infrequently?
Infrequently?
Does that like dilute the data then? Like we only saw it these handful of times.
Infrequency is different than how many were generated.
What do you mean?
So the Higgs boson actually gets generated once every 1 billion events.
Why?
So why? That's probably a Nobel Prize in itself.
About why it's only one in every billion? Okay.
Like,
well, here's your Nobel Prize project.
Yeah, I'll get on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so
I've always wanted to go to Oslo.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, like they generate like it's between 40 and 600. I think earlier on it was 40 million, but now it's 600 million events per second.
Like, why isn't it showing up every time? If it's like they're looking for this particle, if it's a thing in physics, like it's a thing that happened.
It all has to do with how their data analysis works. I mean, what you do is you cut out a lot
like
of your events.
If this is a like the Higgs boson showing up is a, I don't want to say law of physics, like that doesn't sound the right thing, but then shouldn't it happen every time?
So actually, that relates to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. It's a very interesting question.
I'm
because
infuriated by
when you collide these particles, they're because I remember I said it was a proton and an antiproton that are being collided. But what happens when you collide something that's a matter
Positive.
particle with an antimatter particle?
I mean, they negate each other.
They annihilate.
Right.
That's exactly right. But what's left over when they annihilate?
Theoretically, nothing.
Pure energy.
Okay, so then back
That's
up.
This is why
hang on.
this
Oh
is
my
the
God.
whole crux of
Hang
particle
on.
physics that you've
Back
just
up.
stumbled upon. It's a great observation.
Hang on. So then why does it happen at all?
Because
Let's go with the opposite question. Why does it happen at all?
what is Albert Einstein famous for?
His hair?
I'd probably put physics ahead of hair, but what's the thing that
relativity.
people
It's
yes,
a theory
but
of relativity.
equation wise, what do you know about Albert Einstein?
E equals MC squared.
What does the E stand for?
Energy.
What does the M stand for?
Elephants.
Mass. Mass.
So E equals mass. So based on physics, like energy can get converted to mass, and it happens spontaneously. So when you
But why? If this is a rule of how things work, why is it spontaneous? It should be like this all the time. Oh my God, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
well, this is a big thing about a big thing about the Higgs boson is that I didn't even say this yet. There's a field that permeates all of space, and that's called the Higgs field.
He's got his own boson and his own field?
He's got his own field too.
Jesus Christ.
And I would argue that the field is more important than the boson.
Well,
So the field
not
is
what pop
something
culture
that's
would
just
say.
like a
like a plane?
well, I mean, it's just like it's
Not like
the
an airplane,
fabric
Kelsey.
of space time. It's just another field
Thanks.
that permeates the entire universe in every single spot of it, and you just have these particles that interact with that field as they move through it. They don't have any choice because they're a particle that moves through, and they feel that just the way that like a magnet or electricity, like it technically is all around us, right? Like the Earth has a magnetic field that whether we can consciously feel it or not, it's affecting us sitting here right now. And that's the same way it is with like the Higgs field. So there's all these fields that just kind of live in the universe that are just there and things interact with it. That was kind of like the thing that they were adding was this field to the theory. And why the boson is important is because once you find it, that implies that the field is a real thing. So once they found the Higgs boson particle after their events, based on their theory, that means that has to be this field, which confirms that there's a field that permeates space, that the particles moving through it get their mass by interacting with it. So the boson does not give all the other particles its mass. It doesn't. It's not even like the W and Z bosons where it gets exchanged in an interaction. That doesn't happen with the Higgs boson. It's purely, essentially, a byproduct of the existence of this field, which is actually advantageous because it doesn't have any other mechanisms in the theory. So that once you find it, you're pretty much immediately go, well, the Higgs field is a real thing.
I'm still infuriated by the paradox of why doesn't this happen every time? Simultaneously, why does this happen at all?
Mm. Well, I mean, that's quantum mechanics because it's all probability based. You have initial conditions, you have available energy, you have potential energy. That's why it's called potential. You just have some
Impetus?
probability of anything happening. I think people really struggle with like probabilistic universe.
Yeah.
It's very unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah.
That the universe is governed by these things that only have chances of happening.
Fucking bullshit.
Well, I looked up on Google, on the Google machine, just to like give myself some like even simpler terms because your girl needs it. And basically, if you just type in like what is the whole Higgs boson in simple terms, AI tells us in simple terms the Higgs boson is a fundamental particle often called the God particle that is associated with the Higgs field. a field that permeates all of space and is responsible for giving other fundamental particles their mass. So when they say it permeates all of space, is that like space as we know it, or space as in like
everywhere? I think
everywhere.
I said that exact definition through this
Pretty
whole...
much.
You did,
Are
yeah,
you-
at one point, because I was reading it.
I'm
as I was saying
AI.
it.
Are you AI?
Well, some people think. I won't get into it. We could talk about AI all day because we're talking about it in my college that I work at constantly.
But yeah, the field is
we won't go
everywhere
there.
in the universe.
Interesting. Okay.
My brain hurts.
Do you have any?
need to
you have
go-
any other
I need to
thoughts,
go lay down
Kayla,
and digest
Kelsey?
it.
Questions?
I have so many questions, but they're not in order yet.
I feel like I could go on and on, but I think that's kind of a good place to
No, that feels very
end
like
it, but
complete. Like I feel like I get it, but like I
Yeah.
get the Higgs boson.
Kayla has the existential question of why. She wants to know why all of this
I
happened.
think
I'm gonna have to go back to school and study physics and get my own Nobel Prize because now this is annoying me.
I think all physicists kind of go over, the ones that really get into like the Big Bang and the quantum stuff kind of have these realizations at some point in time.
Do they drink all the time?
I mean, I don't, you know that, but
You're not heavy into like the everyday physics though.
no.
Okay.
If he got heavy into the everyday physics,
I'm
he'd get
sure
heavy
that there's
into the
people
everyday
who
bourbon.
let it affect their lives, like these existential problems, but I think that's
Like I'm
what
not
makes it
actually
really
having
interesting
an
to pursue.
existential crisis here, but it's for real though, like infuriatingly mind-boggling to think about.
Mm-hmm. We've
Well,
only scratched the
Kayla's
surface.
infuriated now. Yeah, I can tell that you could keep on going and going and going and just like keep talking about it.
Yeah.
That's cool though. I mean, I would never know about the Higgs boson if it weren't for this podcast. So
There you
now
go.
when a random trivia question comes up about the Higgs boson,
You on it.
I'll be like,
You'll be kicking yourself because you can't remember what we talked about.
I'll remember some stuff, at least enough to answer something, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
Hopefully.
you'll have to convince your friends that you did know it at
No,
one
no,
point
no.
in time.
I do know this.
Yeah. Well, we'll save my Jeopardy story for the time I played Jeopardy for next week's episode.
Okay.
Do you guys remember that story?
No.
No.
Oh God, it's so good.
Okay.
I'll tell you guys next week.
Leave yourself a note.
It's so funny.
Don't forget. Now I'm interested.
Okay, I will. Okay, well, did you guys think of topics for each other, or can I hijack next week's topic?
I mean,
I did think of a topic.
I have a topic, but I'm okay with hijacking too.
Is it for both
What
of
do you
us,
think,
or
Jake?
is it for just Kayla? Or just
It's
for me?
for everybody.
What do you mean, everybody?
I mean, for each of us.
Yeah, I mean for each of us, and I'm gonna do it too. You guys
I'll
scared?
we'll hear you out.
Okay, my idea is each of us, all three of us, takes a legitimate IQ test to measure our IQ. Jake talk about the science behind IQ and how it relates into whatever things, and Kayla talk about like the history of IQ.
That's not really his kind of science.
No, I like the idea. I think we're gonna have to plan it out a little bit more because, like, a legit IQ test, you usually have to go somewhere to
Right.
take it proctored.
Okay. Let's not do a legit IQ test then. Let's just do like an online IQ
But even the
test.
online ones, if you want a good one, you're paying for it.
Yeah. In any
Oh.
case, I like the idea. Let's like try to plan that
Put
for
a
the
pin
future
in
at
that.
some point.
And come back around to
Isn't that
it.
a good
It is a
idea?
good idea.
I think that would be so
And I would
cool.
be
People would love
interested
it.
in like doing the kind of the reading that you're proposing.
I mean, and I can, like, I feel like I can, especially from the GT perspective, talk about, like,
yeah,
the role of IQ tests in education
Yeah.
because there is a place.
Yeah. I just think it would be so interesting too also to like
I guess
track your guys' IQs versus each other and then my IQ, which is probably a more average IQ compared to like people who are
I guess
highly
if the
intelligent.
people command in the comments or demand in the comments that we do that, then we'll get on it.
Yeah. So comment.
Yeah. Comment. Let us know what you think about that idea.
We will have 0 comments. People will be like crickets
Be
just
like,
because
no
we're
one
so new.
cares. That's fine too.
Everybody wants to know my IQ.
Okay, here's my question to you, Kelsey. Pre-IQ test. What is an average IQ?
An average
Mhm.
IQ. Are we talking America or across the world?
Just average.
No. I'm saying.
Because in America, I
no,
think it's a
I'm
little
saying,
bit low.
like, what is the scientific average?
Yeah, I mean,
There is a number that is the scientific average for IQ.
Like, I don't know, 81.
100.
designed that way.
It's designed that way. 100 is an average
Oh.
IQ.
Okay, duh. I was going to say 98,
So,
but then I was thinking that I was like...
whatever the word normal means, I think they typically say between 70 and 100.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think 70 might be a little low for normal.
That's what it's probably not a linear scale either.
No.
But 70's on the low end.
Okay,
of
well,
the
coming
normal.
soon to a podcast near you called This Wasn't on the Test, where we all take a test to figure out what our IQs are.
Okay.
But in the
You
meantime,
know how
what are
competitive
your guys'
Kayla and I are
topics?
going to be over this?
Thinking the same thing.
I know, but you guys can't take your IQ test and tell each other what your IQ is until we're on the podcast.
Okay. This is going to be the rest of our lives. The rest of our lives are going to rest on this one test. Like, that's not even a joke. Like,
and you can't tell each other
Oh my God.
before we're live on air.
That score is pretty good, Kayla. Saying. Anyway, so should we talk about, let's do our actual topics.
Yes.
I'll go first, Kayla.
What you got?
So I want you to tell us about the use of technology in the classroom.
Ooh,
But I really want to know specifically how it helps, like, the active instruction during a class. So I know a little bit, especially because our kid is in school and she has to use it too. But, like, I know that you in particular use the, like, laptop sets that your class gets a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of your starting point. I want to know, like, what type of tools and types of things and, like, the benefits.
So are we talking, like, hardware, software, both?
Both, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Are we talking, like, we're talking specifically about, like, educational technology? Like, we're not getting into, like, cell phones in the classroom right now.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I want to know more about the instruction. I have an idea for the future of just, like, how the access to the internet and all that type of internet age stuff has
Lord.
affected education, but that's a different thing. Okay.
You're going to talk about the atom bomb.
Yeah, I know you. I was
Okay.
expecting that
No.
because I know
Listen,
you really
Kayla's
wanted
been
to.
I watched
watched Oppenheimer.
I watched Oppenheimer recently.
which is
like,
an incredible
again,
movie.
Like, we watched it in theaters, but I
I've
like
even seen
recently
Oppenheimer,
rewatched
and
it.
it was-
Oh my God, it's amazing. And so I'm like, listen, I'm going to need you to break this down for me. So you're talking about the atom bomb.
Yeah, this is specifically, like, how it works. From
Yes.
okay. I'm gonna
I want the
probably
physics
try to
behind
avoid
An atom bomb.
the kind of the political and the.
I mean, you can
all
talk
the
ethics
stuff,
if you
but-
want to.
We'll probably end up talking about it, but yeah.
No, I want to know about, like, the physics of an
Mhm.
atom bomb. Like, how do they work?
Sounds good.
Cool. I'm excited. Great. Well, I'm excited for next week. I'm loving and learning a bunch of new things. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode 3 of This Wasn't on the Test. And we hope that you tune in next week.
Bye.
Bye.